Good morning. Good morning here, so I'll greet you with a good morning. My name is Lee Eric Hermanson. I was born June 1st, 1949 in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Just to let you know that this videotape is going out to many people. It will go out to 3 congressmen, 3 senators, 3 governors of 3 different states. It will also go to municipal courthouses, and it will also go to the FBI in Washington, D.C., and one's going to be sent to the Office of the President of the United States. I realize that you probably won't have time to look at my video, not the video of a lonely human being like myself. But let's get started right away with why I'm bothering you. I don't want to be an inconvenience or a bother. In December, early December, the first week of December of 2001, I received a phone call. At that time, I had started a new business and was doing very, very well. I worked all week long and just got finished working on my wife about 7 o'clock in the evening, and I received a phone call from Melinda Mindy Morris. And the conversation started out with a greeting, and then she got into wanting to talk about sex with her boyfriend. I immediately cut her off and told her that I didn't need to be talking to her about such things, that she needed to talk to her parents, and I asked her what was going on in her family. She told me a whole lot of things about what was going on in her family, and she continued with the sexual thing and had accused me several times of having sex with her, at which time I became very angry. My whole thing in life is helping others, and so I didn't know what the phone call was about. I didn't know what kind of trouble she was in, but it seemed like it was a big ordeal for her. And she told me about slashing her wrists and ending up in 2 different hospitals and just terrifying things. So I was in the midst of trying to help, and there were points in time where I just couldn't believe what was going on. It was almost comedic in some ways. But there were adamant things that I said about what she was accusing me of that made it clear that neither did I ever have anything to do with her sexually, nor did I want to. It scared me. The conversation definitely scared me badly, because I knew something was up, something was really wrong with the way the conversation went. The conversation lasted about a half an hour long, and my wife was present at the time. She got to hear my end of the conversation, and I spent a lot of time standing next to her talking to Melinda. So she got to hear what was going on for the most part. We discussed it after Melinda hung up the phone, and I told my wife that I believed I was being set up. And sure enough, it was about 7 days later, the police came to my door, the Arizona police. I was living in Cottonwood, Arizona at the time. The phone call had come from Durango, Colorado. Police came to my door and arrested me. They didn't search my house because they didn't have a search warrant. They didn't have any warrant at all. They never read me my Miranda rights. They took me to jail, whereupon they had me call Detective Rita Warfield in Durango, Colorado, and she interviewed me without reading me my Miranda rights. And 6 days later, a good friend of mine came and bailed me out of jail. He gave up his home, his cars, everything he had to get me out of jail. And in between that time, I got documentation saying that they had taken my sons and that I was not permitted to contact my sons in any way, shape, or form until this was over. It's 9 years later, and it's still not over, and I haven't heard from my sons. I don't know where my boys are. I love my sons very dearly. I don't even know if they're still alive. I think this is shameful. I'm completely innocent as far as this case goes. I never harmed anyone in my entire life. I have no history of harming anyone. I have no history of molestation or rape or violence at all, period. And I couldn't believe that they had taken me on the pretext conversation, because I was very clear about it. Nothing ever happening between me and Melinda. She's a 12-year-old child. I don't get it. I just don't understand. And so anyway, I went up to Colorado in January, early February, to turn myself in, which I did, and then bailed out the following day and went back to my hometown in Arizona. On the 19th of February, I was supposed to go to court for an extradition hearing on a governor's warrant. I figured, seeing as how I was bailed out in both states and could prove it and had documentation with me, that everything would be okay. Well, that wasn't the case. I was followed all the way to the courthouse in Prescott Valley, and thereupon arrested again and put in jail, even though I was bailed out in both states. I was there 2 days. My wife got a hold of the governors of both states, and I was released. I then began to search lawyers and try to find out what was going on. And I had one lawyer, but he had already gotten me locked up a third time. He didn't call to Prescott to let them know that I had bailed out in 2 states, and there was really no need to be arresting me again. I was told that Colorado wanted me really badly. Okay, so when I went back to Colorado for the evidentiary hearing, I had already hired a new lawyer, and the first thing that he told me to do was to go get a polygraph test. When we arrived back home, it was on Friday night, I believe, and the next morning I had to work, and my wife, when I got home, was on the telephone with a polygraph examiner. She had contacted this polygraph examiner through the police. They told her that he was the best in the area and that he did all their polygraph work for them, and I was sent to him. I talked to him on the telephone, and he was pretty clear about the polygraph test. He made it clear to me that if I had ever even thought about doing such a thing, that he was going to catch me. I got no problem with that. So I went and took the polygraph test, paid for it myself. It was $400, and spent 3.5 hours with the gentleman. This man has 21 years in service. Served the FBI and the Flagstaff Police for many, many years. I passed that test with a 10, an 8, and a 7. It was the first time I ever taken the polygraph test. So it was a little nerve-wracking for me and a little scary. But I did pass it, and I was told that it would be like very good if I took it and passed it on my own, which I did. So that information was sent to my lawyer, which was Richard J. out of Durango, Colorado. And when I went to the evidentiary hearing, it was hardly even mentioned that I had passed the polygraph test. But he did say I had passed it with flying colors and that he was convinced that I was innocent. At the evidentiary hearing, I got to read the transcript from the pretext conversation. And right after the greeting, everything went wrong. It was very evident to me that the tape had been tampered with. Of course, my wife read it too, and it was appalling. It didn't sound right. It didn't sound good at all. There was no admission of guilt, but it had been tampered with brutally. Things that Melinda had said were taken out. Things that I said have been taken out. It was obvious that Melinda had been used to tamper with this tape. Somebody took Melinda and used her. And I knew it. I knew it right away. It was the only piece of evidence that they had against me. Allegedly, the crime took place in a 3/4 ton 1995 Chevy conversion van. This van was pristine. I had turned it into a limo and had a license to run a business called Black Hat Luxury Limo. And I went through all the process and got all my licenses and everything that I needed to run that business. So that vehicle was absolutely pristine. I kept it that way. It was a joy to be able to take my children back and forth from Arizona to Colorado, from southern Colorado back to their home in northern Colorado in that vehicle, because it had television, VCR, it had nice seats in it, a comfortable ride. It was a very safe vehicle. So when I read the pretext conversation, I was very upset about it, and I told Richard J. that it had been tampered with and that I wanted it examined by the FBI or by the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, because it truly had been tampered with, and if that was what they were using to convict me of a crime, I needed it to be examined. He absolutely refused. He told me that they weren't going to do that they weren't going to spend the money on having that done. Now, several things came to my mind. I didn't understand. If I had been contesting a piece of evidence and requested that it be examined, if I was a liar, why wouldn't they have it examined? If I was lying about the tape, then it would be in their best interest to have it examined and to prove me a liar. But they wouldn't do that. Richard J. got cancer in the throat after the preliminary hearing. At the preliminary hearing, I was not permitted to face my accuser. She was not present. My lawyer was not permitted to cross-examine the accuser because she was not present. Detective Rita Warfield sat on the stand, and she testified for the alleged victim. She also read from the transcript on the pretext conversation, which I was absolutely appalled, because everybody knew that had been tampered with and that it could not be used, and they were doing it. And everything that was going on seemed to be so illegal to me. It seemed that these people had so much power that they were making up the laws as they go along and then brutalizing me with them. So Richard J., after the preliminary hearing, got cancer of the throat. One of the other things that happened during the preliminary hearing was Rita Warfield managed to find the van with my ex-girlfriend, and she took pictures of the van inside and out. Being a crime scene, I would think that it would be taken or impounded for forensics to examine. Allegedly, a brutal rape happened in this vehicle. Well, she didn't take it. She had my girlfriend sell it. 2 months later, the vehicle was sold, and she said, Detective Rita Warfield said on the stand that the vehicle had been sold, crashed, and it had disappeared. I don't know if you know anything about Colorado law and vehicles, but every vehicle has to be accounted for. You can't even deliver a vehicle to the junkyard without a title and registration. So that seemed very odd to me, that they would lose a 3/4 ton Chevy van. So I hired a private detective to find the van. He found the van in 2 hours. We know where it is. We know what happened to it. The interior was still intact, and everything could still have been examined at that time.